Hi, for this Hackaday Prize entry, my idea is to build an e-slate. The e-slate is basically a portable writing device which aims to build, rather, which aims to make the process of learning really enjoyable. The idea is for this to be able to serve as a teaching aid for teachers in rural areas to provide interactive content um, to students. Now, the problem is that in rural areas in India and in other countries, the class size is really large. So the number of students would be somewhere around 30 to 60 to even more in a class, and there'd be a single teacher trying to teach all of them. Now, this is particularly hard for the teacher because it's really hard for him to go to each student and try to figure out whether whatever they have written or whatever he is trying to teach them, they have been able to grasp it or not. So um, now this uh, they've been Um, people have tried to solve this earlier as well using the one laptop per child project, distributing laptops to students, tablets to students. The problem with this approach is that these devices are expensive, so the schools either tend to keep them in the school premises itself and allow the students to use them only during certain lab sessions, or even if they are given out to students, that happens only in a very few set of schools anywhere, just for the fear of the students losing the devices or breaking them. So I drew my inspiration from the slate. The slate is basically a writing device where you can draw free form drawings or alphabets, anything. So the idea is to basically empower the teacher with a low-cost peer-to-peer teaching aid, where the teacher can push in questions to students, and the device can so the student solves the problem that's given by the teacher, and while doing so, the device can identify whether the solution is right or wrong. So it brings about some degree of interactivity in the process of learning. So the idea is, as you can see, there is a master node which is owned by the teacher. So basically, all the devices are the same. They can either behave as masters or slaves. So in this case, the master node is owned by the teacher, and each slave device is owned by a student. So the master node pushes out questions which can be, say, of the form, um, write the alphabet A. So the slave each slave pad would speak out saying, write the alphabet A. This message would be spoken out to the student, and the job of the student would be to move his hand on the capacitive touchpad represented as a grid, and while he's moving the touchpad, he can see what he's writing on the small Nokia 5110 screen on the device. So once he's done, he presses a button saying confirm, and he's the device, using a very elementary linear algebra, can determine if um, the solution given by the student, in this case, if he has actually entered A or not. uh, it can determine if the freeform text is in A or not using principal component analysis, and the response is given back to the teacher. So the teacher can evaluate whether the students have all answered correctly or not. So this thing can also be used independently. So the teacher can push in a bunch of questions which the student can work out at home, Or these can also be used outside of the class in a collaborative setting where the master becomes one of the students and slaves are the other students, where the master one of the students with the master node can push out questions to bring about some degree of interactivity in in the process of learning. Now, to compose all of this, I plan to use a PCB touch panel, which would allow the students to enter the freeform text, uh, STM32 to quickly scan all the touch panels to actually get a bit field of the freeform text that the user has input, a micro SD card to store the the matrices of the freeform texts which will be used in the principal component analysis, and also to store the audio samples, a Nokia 5110 LCD to display the freeform text and the questions, a Pinocchio board. I'm planning to use the Pinocchio board in this prototype, but then I might use a more integrated solution in future builds. And finally, an 8 ohm speaker with the added necessary circuitry to play back the audio samples. So that's basically it. And these are this is my entry into the Hackaday Prize.